And I am at Down Syndrome Innovations, formerly known as, I feel like the artist, formerly known as Prince, but changed to something pronounceable, so that's fine. With Down Syndrome Innovations, that is brand new as of like the past month. We used to be the Down Syndrome Guild of Greater Kansas City, and then we dropped the Greater Kansas City, and then we dropped the guild and decided to be innovative. So yeah, we work out of the Kansas City metro area, specifically Mission, Kansas, which is a tiny town and that no one's ever heard of, but that's fine. And then I've got Marie here with me as well. We are both part of the Pathways team, providing therapeutic services at Down Syndrome Innovations. So go forward, maybe. Okay, so we are all about our life-changing support and services, enabling people with Down syndrome to live life to their fullest potential. We do have complementary group programming across the lifespan that we are offering virtually. So if you, and I will give this presentation, I'll send it to you, Lindsay, at the end so that people can access the links. But yeah, if you go to our website, you can find our group programming. We offer stuff virtually right now for young children, so like the elementary age, teens, and then adults as well. Hopefully soon we'll have even more of that to offer. And then even as we're starting to do more things on site, we plan on keeping a pretty good virtual component because it allows us to get to see more and more people. And so at Down Syndrome Innovations, we offer services across the lifespan. So we have therapy services, expectant new parent support, play groups, social programming, educational programming, and adult services. And so that's our team over there. We're really fun, but really we are. We have a lot of fun every day, and it's a great group of people to work with and a lot of knowledge in that silly picture. And so,
exciting little tidbit. I'm not sure if all of you guys have children mainly in that 2 to 6 early childhood range, or if we have older children here attending, but I'm currently piloting our play groups for kids 2 to 6, and they will be drop-in services for $10. So if you're ever in the Kansas City area, maybe getting medical services, or you're just visiting for whatever reason, feel free to reach out to us about how to sign up for the play groups, and we'd love to see you drop in.
Or even if you're there, you know, and it happens to be a night that we're doing, or a day that we're doing something on site for kids in your age range, we'd love to see you. So, or we'd even just love to see you come take a peek at our new building, which we're standing in front of in this picture. There is a very sad empty space that you can kind of see that's gated off to the left of us. Eventually, supposedly by the end of July, that will be a playground. So thank you to the Deffenbaugh Foundation, who they came and toured our building. They were like, what's that sad space? And we were like, a playground eventually. They're very expensive. And they were like, cool, done, we've got it. So come play on our playground, come hang out with us. Downtown Mission it's very walkable, has a lot of really fun shops. And so we'd love to see you. So we are part of the therapy team. So our transformational therapeutic services equip the person with Down syndrome and his or her caregivers with skill building strategies and individualized supports within the home and community. So Marie and I have been with Down Syndrome Innovations. Gosh, I came on in January of 2019. Marie, I know you were there a little bit before me.
I started in August of 2018 and then came on full time August of 2019.
Yeah, so Marie started as a student, and I started there as part of the Pathways program. So basically we provide community-based services because we know school does a great job of doing the school stuff, but they don't get to work on all of the skills. And so we want to make sure that individuals with Down syndrome or people with Down syndrome have the opportunity to succeed in whatever capacity that they want to reach their fullest potential. And, you know, school isn't working on showering, but hey, we can work on showering. We can support morning routines. We can help them get ready for vocational opportunities, because we know that some people do need more support or more opportunities that aren't afforded to them in their school district, especially some of our more rural families don't have all of the same opportunities as you do in the big city. So it's not a big city, but that's
also fine. Megan, relevant to today's topic, there's not really a service that helps you with toilet training. You know, you have books, you have resources, you can go to webinars, you know, but one service Megan and I collaborate on is providing those toilet training consults when families try to toilet train and they hit a barrier and they need a little bit more support.
And so I am a board certified behavior analyst, a BCBA. Mostly we're known for working with individuals with autism, but everybody learns in basically the same way, the same very basic principles when you break it all down. And so there's a lot that the ABA profession and field can offer to people with Down syndrome. And so I just quick note about me. I've been a BCBA since 2015, and prior to that, I'd been working with individuals with very intensive behavioral needs since 2011. So I've been in the field for almost a decade, which is ridiculous. It makes me feel really old, but here we are. And so my history is supporting individuals, mostly in school settings that have had very intensive behavioral needs, so a lot of aggression, property destruction, and then sometimes also toileting that we were working on. And so that is something, like Marie said, that there just aren't a lot of resources out there. And then even if you go to like, what does the research say? Because, you know, I'm a nerd and I'm going to do that. There aren't a lot of research articles out there. Like there's a couple, and then they were just like, okay, we solved that, that's done. But we all know that that's not the case. And so, so yeah, Marie, what's your spiel? Who are you? What do you do?
So I'm I'm an occupational therapist. I graduated in 2019, but before that, I was a registered behavior technician for 3 years. And now I'm board certified assistant behavior analyst. So the bachelor's level of what Megan is. So her and I kind of collaborate a lot on that behavior piece, but then I'm also able to bring in that OT lens as well. And then before that, I was actually a toddler teacher where one of my core responsibilities was helping support families train. So all kind of led into where I am now.
So today we're going to talk about those readiness, skills, medical challenges that might be more prevalent in people with Down syndrome, getting everything set up to start potty training. The ever favorite for me and Marie, I think, but not always a favorite for families, the data collection, creating a plan, wiping, which is something that I never thought I would. We're going to talk about something that Marie and I do in the office. It's really funny that one day I just like stepped back and I was like, this is a thing that we're doing in a professional setting. This is very interesting. So be excited about
that. We get paid to do.
Yeah. And then also talking about accidents, what to do when they happen, because we know they're going to, like they have, that's just part of life. So the first kind of thing you want to establish is, are you ready to start potty training? For me, I feel like when I think about potty training my own child, the answer, are you ready? That's a ridiculous question. Nobody is ever fully ready to potty train a child, even if you think you are. It's very challenging and takes a lot of time and it's a very emotional process. So a big thing to make sure that everyone is ready. It can't just be that your child is ready, or a lot of times it can't just be that you are ready or preschool says they have to do it. Everyone has to be ready. A lot of people I know at the very beginning of the pandemic, when we were all kind of stuck at home, people were like, this is gonna be the perfect time to potty train. And I wanted to be like, no, don't do it right now. You don't have access to your typical emotional support. You can't leave the house to be like, I'm gonna go to Target and walk around for a while because, oh my gosh, I just need a break. And so I kind of caution people to do that, because if that was, oh, we're home anyway, but it's like, well, we're home, but it's a very stressful time right now. So make sure that everyone is ready. And that includes you, because you as a caregiver, that's the most important thing, because if you can't be in the right mind space, your kid's not going to be in the right mind space either, because they're very good at picking up on that.
And Megan, I think another piece too is a lot of times children go to different settings. You know, they are at home, they're at school, they're at grandparents' house. And so I know, Megan, you'll talk more about the importance of having a schedule, you know, and a procedure. And so if one of those settings isn't ready to support yet, you could have a barrier there because it's not consistent across environments.
Yeah, so really everybody's got to be ready to tackle this. And then really if you take away nothing else, which I hope you take away a little bit more, but really there's no right way to potty train your kid. There's not a way that's like, well, Megan said that these are the steps to follow. No, that doesn't work. I've gone to places where they're like, no pull-ups, don't do pull-ups, only underwear, leave them pantsless, do this, do that. Like, and they're like, this is the way to do it. There's no right way to do that. Like, I used pull-ups with my kid, even though I used to be a person that was like, pull-ups are terrible. No, peeing on the floor is terrible at my house. Like, I'm going to use pull-ups. And also another big thing, it's okay to stop and try again later. Like that's totally fine. You can start and then be like, wow, this is really overwhelming. My kid isn't as ready as I thought. I'm not as ready as I thought. You know, maybe preschool isn't following through as not rigidly, consistently as you would like. So it's okay to be like, we're going to do this again at another time. And then it's a really wide range that I still feel is really, I don't like 18 months to 3 years. 18-month-olds are, it is a rare time that an 18-month-old is in a good place to start potty training. Like I was talking to my friend about this the other day who has a 3.5-year-old, and she was like, yeah, an 18-month-old, maybe that had like an older sibling that was also potty training, that was really motivated by stickers or surprise, like all of that, maybe they would be able to do it. But really, we're seeing kids potty training later and later times because there's a lot of reasons for it. We don't use punishment as much, which is great. So we're not making the potty aversive, but we're also just realizing that like, hey, we can slow down a little bit with that. So really the goal now is really to have them potty train before they start kindergarten for most kids. But even that, like sometimes kids just need more time, and that's okay. And especially children with Down syndrome, it's okay to start later and finish later. That's totally fine. Or you can start early and do like little steps in between to kind of get them ready for really, it's a journey of potty training. It's not just like a one-stop shop kind of situation. But we do know that potty training is really important. It's really important because independence, you want them to be independent in the potty because you're tired of changing diapers, I'm sure, and you want them to be able to do that. And you want them to be able to do that at grandma's house, at school, at a friend's house, because we want them to be included, because that's really important, because we want all of our children to have meaningful friendships. Also, we want them to be proud of themselves, like give them a reason to be proud. Peeing in the potty is like seeing kids after they do that and they're just like, I am the best. This is the best thing anyone's ever done. This is great. All of that. And it's really fun to see. And also social opportunities. We don't want them to miss out on anything because they are not potty trained. A lot of places do require them to be independent, or at least mostly independent in toileting before they can participate. And another big thing is personal safety. I know right now you might not be thinking about your child one day being a teenager or an adult because that's horrifyingly scary, and you don't want to think about that. I don't like to think about that. But if they need help toileting, that is just another time that they have to, take off their clothing and be vulnerable in front of another person. And so we want to make sure that we're giving them those tools so that we can reduce that. And then also employment, which seems crazy to be thinking about if you have a toddler and you're like, oh no, we got a lot of steps before they're employed. But we want to make sure that we are working on all of those skills because, it is hard to be employed if you're not fully toilet trained. And so we just want to make sure that if there's a way that we can remove any barriers, that we're removing them for our children. And so there are some signs of readiness, which even these, I'm like, so it will make it easier if your kid has periods of staying dry. I know with my own child, he had a hard time staying dry for long periods. Like he could really only stay dry for 30 minutes. And you know what? That was his body being like, we're not ready to potty train. We don't have the muscle control. We don't have the bladder control. And that's fine. Also, if they urinate a lot at one time. So it's not like, oh, well, we check his diaper and there's just like a little bit of pee in there. Oh, I would probably wait because you want them to have that bladder control that they can void a lot at once and really empty their bladder. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit harder. That they are pooping on a fairly regular schedule and that their poop is a nice consistency. I never thought I'd be talking about with basically strangers about their children's poop, but here we are. So I think it's a type 4 on the Bristol stool chart. Basically, you want it to be soft, easy to eliminate. You don't want it to be like hard, pellety, or even you don't want it to be overly loose because, constipation, all of that. We'll get to that in a minute. But so pooping regularly, that they notice when they're wet or dirty. That's a big one. If a kid isn't really concerned that they are wet, it's gonna be more challenging. That they're curious, that they're like, hey mom, hey dad, what are you doing in the potty? I want to be a part of that. Hey, how's it going? I want to do that. I want to sit on the potty, which, sometimes you just want to pee in peace, but it's actually good that they're curious about it. That they can mostly follow one-step directions. It might be a little bit supported, but that they are aware that you are in the room with them, giving them a direction and ready to go. And also that they can sit and wait. So that one I know is a struggle for basically all children, but that they can sit down for maybe 5 to 10 seconds at first. We definitely need them to be able to do that so that they can sit on the potty. So ups the chances of pee actually making it in the potty. And then these other ones are great to have, but they're not necessary that they can physically access the toilet. Some kiddos with Down syndrome have some more physical challenges than others. And so if they need help getting to the bathroom, that's okay. That they can dress and undress. Sure, in a perfect world, your kid would be able to like button buttons and snap snaps and zip zippers and do all the things, but they need help sometimes because they have little tiny hands, little tiny fingers, sometimes shorter limbs. So yeah, it can be hard to get dressed and undressed, and then that they can communicate. Well, a lot of kids with Down syndrome in that 18-month to 3-year range are still working on clearly communicating. And so, if we need to look at other strategies other than vocal communication, that's fine. So those are great to have, but they're not necessary. Those other ones will make it a little bit easier.
Megan, I think we'd both agree from that behavior world and the OT world is that those great to have, but not necessary. There's a lot of different modifications and adaptations that we can use to support if these skills aren't there or having trouble with one of these 3 skills, for example.
Definitely.
Physically access the toilet because it's too high, do we add a stool and a grab bar so they're more able to get on the toilet safely? Dress and undress. If they're having trouble with fasteners, well, while we're toilet training and until we can independently do fasteners, let's just wear some leggings or some sweatpants or pants that don't need necessarily fasteners. And then like you were saying, Megan, already with those visuals to help with communication if needed.
But there are some medical challenges that are somewhat unique to the Down syndrome population or maybe occur more often in the Down syndrome population that we do have to keep in mind. And it's really important to address any kind of medical concerns prior to starting that potty training process. And also, if your kid's scheduled to have some kind of surgery or a dental procedure, or maybe they fell down and they broke their arm, put a pause on potty training. Really wait a bit until after they've fully healed, or, you've been able to fade out all the post-op things that you've needed to do before you start potty training. So it is always a good idea to check in with your pediatrician before you start the potty training process, because sometimes there are medical things that kind of come up that we didn't really realize were a concern, and we definitely want to get those checked out. Otherwise, it's going to be really frustrating for you and for your child. And so
Megan, I think a common one we hear is constipation.
Yes, and we're going to get there. These are our number one things that can happen. So, an overactive bladder. If your child is going every hour or 10 or more times a day, that is considered an overactive bladder, and you might want to speak to your pediatrician about that. Or an underactive bladder, which I did not realize until recently was a thing. So if they're going for less than 3 times per day, or they can hold it for 12 hours or more, because most people go like roughly every couple hours, that's an underactive bladder, and that is going to come along with its own challenges because a lot of those kids with an underactive bladder may not be able to like fully relax their muscles in order to void, because they're so used to like holding it in. And so then that can lead to some other challenges, and then dysfunctional voiding for whatever reason their bladder does not fully empty. Neurogenic bladder, so that is like, hey, your bladder works great and all that works great, but there's some kind of the signals aren't getting there from your brain or your spinal cord. It's some kind of nerve issue, or even a non-neurogenic bladder when there's no neurologic abnormalities, but just the urine isn't flowing as would be expected. And then UTIs. So there's urinary tract infection. So that can happen sometimes when kids hold their urine too much because, they don't want to stop playing, or especially for girls, it can be an issue with wiping. So we always want to make sure that we're teaching really everybody to wipe front to back, but it's a little bit more important with girls just because of the anatomical structure. So making sure that we keep that bacteria out of the urethra and the bladder and all of that. And then for number 2, we've got constipation, which really it's like every kid, it's like, well, they're constipated. And there's so many reasons for it because, you have your low muscle tone. So you're not wanting to get up and move around a lot because it's hard and you're tired. Maybe you are a very picky eater because for a variety of reasons. It could be sensory. It could be that you have the low muscle tone in your mouth, so it's hard to chew stuff. Or you don't like to explore a lot of other options for food. So, you're stuck on a Cheez-Its and fruit snacks diet. And that is definitely a stage that basically every child goes through. So basically every child is going to experience constipation at some time. Sorry, my dog is crying. And so making sure too that we're getting a lot of fluids, that we're eating foods with a lot of fiber, which all of those things can be challenging for basically any child who is dealing with constipation. But then there's also celiac disease, which does occur more frequently in people with Down syndrome. So there is a blood test that doctors can do. And then if that's kind of inconclusive, like the gold standard is a biopsy of intestinal villi, which basically means that they're going to need to be put under and do a colonoscopy, or I'm not sure if an endoscopy will get all the way down. I don't think so. I think it would have to be a colonoscopy, which as someone who has done that, I can't imagine being like, okay, 3-year-old, this is what we're going to do today. That sounds terrible. So hopefully you can do the less invasive blood test. So definitely ask for that first. And then also IBS. So just kind of, it's hard. IBS, there isn't like a specific test that you can say, okay, yeah, IBS. It's more of a diagnosis of ruling everything else out. But if your child experiences a lot of stomach pain, bloating, gassiness, that's definitely something you can look at as well. And then anorectal malformation. So basically the plumbing isn't set up. It doesn't fit right. A lot of times that anorectal malformation is caught at birth because it's pretty evident early on that your child hasn't had a bowel movement, after they've been born. And Hirschsprung's disease is a little bit similar. It is maybe sometimes a little bit harder to catch, but it is an issue with the nerves in the colon that affect the ability for you to fully void. So yeah, just want to make sure that you are aware of those things, because like I said, I hadn't heard of underactive bladder, and I've been in this field in helping kids toilet train for 10 years. And so just making sure that you know that information so that you can advocate for your child in a medical setting. So we can be proactive. We can make sure they're getting a lot of fiber. Definitely check with your doctor because there are like kind of some guidelines for fiber. I did want to put them up here because I think it's really important that you talk to your medical provider about that to make sure that you're not doing anything that would be contraindicated for your child. Definitely making sure that they're hydrated. Water is the ideal, but we know some kids don't like to drink water. So, if they can drink a lot of that carbonated water that we have now, and then even juice, milk, soda, you can kind of like cut it with water over time until it's all water. Or, put in those like little flavor drops or whatever. So making sure that they're staying hydrated, and also just making sure that they're moving, because that is sometimes challenging for kids that are delayed in walking, crawling, sitting up, but making sure that you find a fun way for them to get some movement in during the day. And I know some of you are probably like, oh no, they move constantly all the time forever, and we're having a problem with not moving. So, there's both ends of that spectrum. So then how do we set the stage? How do we get ready? I am going to let my dog out because now he's crying. Out. Out. Thank you. So setting the stage, getting the environment set up to start potty training. So clothing, like we've kind of said, now's not the time to work on button snaps or zippers. Save that for another day. Loose clothing with elastic waistbands are your friends. It's great that there's so many leggings in style right now, and also like everyone's like wearing athleisure wear. So great thing that that's popular, because that is great to wear while you are potty training. You can also get the training underwear that's like really thick, and it'll be like training underpants. You can get that if you don't want to do pull-ups, or if you don't want to commit to just regular underwear. You can also have your kid walk around pantsless for a while, or, just they're running around in their birthday suit, they're naked. I have tried the pantsless with my own child. We quickly switched to pull-ups because that went just as well as you would expect. Also, it's kind of iffy because I've worked with some kids who then kind of pair being naked with being in the bathroom and going in toileting. And so then you have kids that are like, I have to be naked to poop, which is hard in a public bathroom. It's possible, but it's hard, and it does get a little weird as they get older. So, I would, if your kid will tolerate wearing clothing and toileting, I would definitely go that route, because you don't want to invent a whole nother challenge in the meantime. But, if it is becoming a struggle to get those pants up and down all the time, and you're doing a lot of bathroom trips, that is something that you can do. That is okay. And so Your bathroom setup. For your kid, making sure that there's some wet wipes in there because pooping does get messy. Or, you want to be able to wipe their hands real fast if they put their hands in places that you would prefer that they weren't. A step stool if they need to be able to get up and down off the potty because they're little, and also be able to wash their hands. A squatty potty is great, but you can also use a step stool as a squatty potty too. Maybe it's not perfectly ergonomic, but it'll still get the job done. And squatty potties do really help with that, with constipation and having those bowel movements, because it allows, you always want your child's knees to be above their hips whenever they are pooping, because that allows the colon to like unkink. And so making sure that they have a stable place too to put their feet so that they feel safe also. So a squatty potty or a step stool kind of helps with all of those things. You can also get a toilet seat insert. I really like the one that like attaches to your toilet. Summer Infant makes one that I really like. It just has a whole other little like seat that comes down. And so you can flip it up when you're a grown up and using that potty, but then you can flip it down for whenever your kid uses the potty. It's really great then when grandparents come over and think like what's wrong? What's happening with your toilet? And so having that is really great. I like that one because the little ones that have like Elmo on them or Paw Patrol or whatever that you like set into the potty whenever they're going, pee can get in those in some weird places and then it smells really terrible. So, you can do that if you're better at cleaning them than I am, but those toilet seat inserts, man, those are great because you just clean them like regular toilet seat. And then sometimes a hand valve can be helpful. If you do have a little boy, pee guard might be helpful too sometimes, or you can simply just like hold a towel down there too. So, that can absorb that. Extra clothing for them because you don't want to be cleaning up a poop mess and then be like, oh no, we need extra clothes. And then your kid's running around in a poop mess and then there's poop everywhere. So just having kind of some extra clothes in there so you can at least, make it from the bathroom to their room to change clothes, maybe even a little bit more. Hand soap or hand sanitizer. I like to have hand sanitizer in there when you are practicing going potty because sometimes washing hands becomes a whole event in and of itself. Making sure you have extra toilet paper because you don't want to run out in the middle of all of this. Visual supports, which we're going to talk about, toys, books, rewards, because if you want them to sit for a long time, they might need to have something to do. And then I like to have the reward in there for like immediate consumption. For my kid, we used Reese's Pieces. So it's like, oh my gosh, you peed in the potty before you even got off the potty. It was like, here's our Reese's Pieces. And so making sure that that's in there. And for some kids, it helps when that reward is visible because you can kind of talk about it. For you, hey, a squatty potty is really great for adults too, so it's a great investment. The pee guard is for you as much as for your child because you don't want to get peed on, but making sure you might need to have some extra clothes in there too, just in case. Paper towels or towels, sanitizing wipes because bathrooms are gross. A plunger because there will be a time that your kid will put too much toilet paper in the potty. That's just going to happen. A comfy seat because sometimes squatting by your kid, trying to keep them on the potty is hard on the knees. And basic toilet knowledge so that if the toilet starts to overflow or your kid's just really into flushing, you know how to like turn the water off or disconnect the flusher thing. That's really good to know. And it's also much better to know that before it happens so that you're not furiously Googling and trying to find a YouTube video that helps you with that. And then also rewards for yourself. Nobody says you can't reward yourself for toilet training your child. So maybe you have some gummy bears in there or, something else that you really like because you're working hard too. So self-care. And then in your go bag, because we are getting out in the community more and your child will eventually one day probably pee in a public bathroom. I know some people don't like that, but sometimes you gotta go. And so making sure you have wet wipes with you, a toilet seat insert. They make little like foldable ones that are really nice so that your kid doesn't fall into the potty whenever you're somewhere else. They aren't as stable as I would like for them to be, but I'm sure they'll improve over time. So yeah, having that little toilet seat insert so they can kind of at least more easily sit on the potty. Pee guard if that's something that you need. Extra clothing because of course you just always have extra clothing for your child. Hand sanitizer, toilet paper, any kind of visual supports because it's great to generalize those to the community. Toys, books, rewards, and sanitizing wipes. Basically just wipe down everything because your child is going to touch everything, or just be ready to wipe their hands too. You don't have to clean up somebody else's public bathroom. That does sound kind of gross. So I've said a few things about visuals and we're going to draw. So if you have a pen and paper or a writing utensil of your choice, get that out, because this is just a fun little thing that we're going to do. You can also be like, Megan, this is the worst. I totally understand. That's fine. It's something I really enjoy. And so drawing utensil, paper, listening ears. You guys ready? I can't see anybody. Marie, do people look ready?
I see Sandra has her paper. Oh, not everyone's live either. Some people.
That's totally fine. Totally fine.
I guess I monitored that.
Okay, so just have your listening ears on. I will not repeat any directions. Some of you might have seen this already. So let's go. So just follow these directions. Draw 3 little circles. Above that, draw 4 more little circles. Above that, draw 2 more little circles. Above that, draw a skinny rectangle. On top of that rectangle, draw a larger rectangle. Then under the skinny rectangle, draw a skinny oval. Now draw 3 bigger circles. In between your set of 4 little circles and your set of 2 little circles, draw a triangle. On one of your big circles, draw 2 lines. And then now draw 3 more lines on each of those lines. Okay, everybody got your drawing? I put a lot of filler slides in here because sometimes I accidentally go forward. Oh. How'd you do? Anybody? No, nobody drew a snowman. That's okay. But think about how when you are giving directions to your child in the bathroom or even outside of the bathroom, you're like, don't touch that, do this, pull your pants down, over here. That's hard. And it's hard for adults, but it's really hard for young learners. And it's really hard for young learners who have issues with auditory processing, which a lot of people with Down syndrome do have challenges with auditory processing. And so a lot of them are really great visual learners, which I'm sure you have found. And so visuals are really important. And especially for something that is kind of stressful, like potty training, visuals can be great, especially because you're going to go potty other places besides your house. And so being able to take those visuals along can help generalize those skills, because we know a lot of people do struggle with generalization as well. It's hard to, when everything looks different, to know that you're supposed to do the same thing that you do at home. So visuals can be super helpful. So some visuals that we have that we can consider are a visual schedule. So knowing when you should go, the visual schedule for the steps of toileting, the steps for wiping, steps for washing your hands, even a visual of, hey, this is what an accident looks like, and this is what we're supposed to do when an accident happens, and then a token board. So we have some examples of visuals that I'm going to pull up.
Megan, while you pull that up, I'd like to add, and you're probably like, why do people keep talking about when my kid's a teenager or adult? But that's one thing about Down syndrome innovations is we like to see that lifespan perspective to start working on skills at an early age. So then when they are a teen adult, they're more successful. So one thing when I have been supporting people with vocational readiness and development, visuals are so important, and it can help independence in a job. And so even teaching early on how to follow a bullet schedule, you know, that skill of knowing how to follow that visual schedule with multi-steps can then 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, support them with that independence and job task for how to greet customers, how to sort mail, and all of those other fun vocational activities.
And visuals really are everywhere around us, and we don't always think about it. Your calendar on your phone is a visual. The signs on doors that say push, that's a visual, because sometimes doors are confusing. Exit, that's a visual. The bathroom sign, you don't just open the bathroom in a public place and be like, is this for women? Is this for men? Is this a family bathroom? There's a sign on the outside that tells you. So all of those are visuals. And the great thing about visuals is you don't need someone else to follow that visual. So if your child can follow a visual, they can do that by themselves, and that's independence. You don't have to fade out all visuals to consider that a child or an adult is independent. One of our administrative assistants, Zach, he lives on his own in his own apartment. He has visuals in there that each day it's like, okay, this is your work attire that you're supposed to wear. And, you know, any kind of visuals that he needs, those are in there. And because of that, he can live independently. And so that's huge. He has the independence he wants and needs, but he also, has those supports built in as well. So yeah, can you see the visual over here?
Uh-huh.
Great. Over here, like it's over here on my screen, but whatever. So this one, I can go potty by myself. We actually have these posted in the bathrooms at DSG. Oh gosh, it was DSG though. Yeah. We had these posted. Somehow they walked off. So we're just really hoping that somebody took them to use at home. And we need to set up more in our new space anyway. So yeah, just a simple visual of, I pull my pants down, I go potty, I wipe, I pull my pants up, I flush, and then I wash my hands. Of course, we tried to make this one pretty general, but you can always go more specific. Maybe your child needs, different steps for wiping. Sometimes some families are like, they wipe once and then they put it in the potty. They wipe and put it in potty. So we might have to break that down. But this one was just a pretty general one. You can also have one for washing your hands. So, pull up your sleeve, rinse your hands, put soap on your hands, count to 20, rinse your hands, dry your hands. Or also, sometimes we break it down into, sorry, I realize there's some nudity in these, but they're line drawings, so sorry, everyone. Sometimes we break it down onto cards, and we cut these cards out and put them on a key ring so that parents can put them on, their go bag or on their keychain or whatever. So imagine that these are cut out and on a key ring. So we can do that too for pottying on the go. And then the struggle that everyone gets into is that wiping piece. We can also use visuals for that. So when I poop, I have to wipe. I'm talking about looking at the toilet paper and wiping until it's clean. And also don't forget to flush. So yeah, those are all visuals we can use. We can also use visual schedules. So, if you are working on potty training and knowing when to go, putting it into your first then of like, first we're going to do this and then we're going to go potty. But then also first we're going to go potty, then we're going to do something really fun because, you want to motivate your child to go to the potty. And also token boards. So, oh my gosh, you followed all the directions, you filled out your token board and great job. And I was going to get my kids' token board because we have one at my house and I did not grab it. So anyway, using a token board can be helpful too. Okay, now I want, did the PowerPoint come back?
Yes, you're back to visuals to consider.
What? Amazing. It actually worked. So you've got everything set up, you've got your visuals, you're ready to go, and you're like, okay, let's do this. Oh gosh, now we're doing it. Data. I hope there's some Star Trek fans out there. I took a chance. I don't know. I feel like the parents that I am providing these trainings to are getting younger and younger. And I'm getting older and older. And so some of my references aren't going to land, but that's fine.
I've never, ever watched Star Trek.
Gosh, Marie.
I don't get your reference, but
I know. You don't understand my Star Wars references. I mean, I got my story. You're like, what? You don't understand my Avengers references. I'm so sad. But anyway, you want to take some data. I know that sounds super horrible and scary and the worst, but it's really not as bad as you think. Oh, I try. But you want to take data for about a week because this will help you figure out how often and when you need to take your kid to the potty. If it's like, okay, 30 minutes after they eat dinner, that's when they're going to have a bowel movement. Well, you might not know that unless you're taking data. And it doesn't have to be anything formal. It's like grab a piece of paper and write down. It can also help you recognize any challenges or barriers that then you can kind of work out some strategies before you really dive into that potty training. I don't know how to. So this is an example of the potty training sheet that we have used. Marie, can you see the potty training sheet?
It's really tiny if you can zoom in. That's better.
Great. So this one's pretty intense because we were using it with a family who's had a lot of challenges with potty training. And so we were like, well, we are going to get to the bottom of this and we need a lot of information to do that. You might not need all of this information and that's okay. But this is something that if anybody is interested, we totally can shoot it to you in an email. So, the time, what activity they left because this kiddo was having trouble transitioning away from an activity to go potty because it's hard to stop when you're going potty. And so we're trying to figure out, did this person leave willingly, yes or no, just to see if there were any patterns to that. Was his underwear a pull-up? Did he, urinate in there? Did he have a bowel movement, or was he dry? In the toilet, did he urinate, have a bowel movement, or, no? What reinforcer was accessed? What reward did we give him essentially? And then did he actually seem to enjoy that reward? Because we were having trouble figuring out, like, maybe we just don't have the right reward. And then any comments or notes. This is especially important whenever you are potty training across environments, so that, if somebody does say like, this was kind of weird, or this happened, or this was a success, that's always great to put there too. And then especially if you're potty training across environments, initials, so that if you're like, can you explain more? You know who to go to for that. And then down here.
Adding on to that, Megan, I know one feedback that we've gotten from one family, we've given this data sheet with the initials and see when it's across environments. Actually love taking data because they can see what's happening both at school and after school care. So then they just have a better picture of the self-advocates day. Like, we don't want to get rid of the data sheet. We love this data sheet. We got everyone on board.
We're like, well, we have all the information we need. Please stop sending us the data sheet. So you can continue to take it, but we have a lot of data about your child, which is great. Like, it's been really helpful to have all of that data, but we've also made some progress, some really great progress. So we don't necessarily need all of this data, but hey, I don't actually think I would ever be like, please stop taking it. If it makes you feel better, man, do it. We're also tracking, what they were eating, because it could be like, oh, hey, you know what? On Tuesdays when he has got into a bunch of gluten, had just like bread and rolls and all that stuff, he didn't poop for 3 days. Oh, maybe we should check that out with our doctor, So that can help you there, or it can also help you determine, like, is my kid getting enough fiber in their diet? Because that is something that's good to increase as well if your kid is having some challenges with constipation. Then we were also looking at fluids. So what was the cup size? What time did they have the empty cup? What were they drinking? Were they drinking a lot of juice? Were they drinking a lot of milk? Were they drinking a lot of water? That can be important too. And like I said, this is a really, really in-depth data sheet, because for this particular family, that's what we needed. We needed all of this information to figure it out. If you're at home and your kid doesn't have any like major medical challenges, this is your first round of potty training, because for this kid, it's been a journey with him. You might not need all of this information. You might just need to know when they went potty. But definitely we can share this with you. And if creating data sheets isn't necessarily something that you're like, I love doing this, I do love doing it. And so we can always schedule a time to meet up on Zoom and talk about, okay, let's create a data sheet that works for your family, because I like doing that stuff and I have time to do that stuff, whereas you might not, because being a parent is hard. And that's just how it is. So use us as a resource. You can always reach out. You'll have our contact information as well. Okay, gonna get back to the PowerPoint. Let's see. Hey, okay. I think that worked.
Good.
So anyway, take the data. A week is good. Even if you just get like 3 days, you're working with something. Just kind of get a baseline so that you're not just like shooting in the dark and being like, well, I guess we'll go potty now. It's good to just be like, you know what, we're going to go potty every 90 minutes or every 45 minutes, whatever. And then make a plan. So how will your kid know when it's time to go to the potty? What words are you going to use? It's really important that everyone's using the same words, especially if your child is not to the point yet where they can initiate and then like communicate, like, I need to go potty. Using those same words across environments will help them eventually be able to initiate those bathroom trips. And so when will your child go to the potty? How often? How long do you want them to sit on the potty? Some kids might need a while because they've got to sit, they've got to process, like, okay, I'm in here, I'm in the bathroom. Okay, now I got to, use different muscles because I was holding my pee. Now I got to let it go in the potty. And so it can be hard. The book that I was just reading, and it's a new book that we'll have a link for. It's Potty Time for Kids with Down Syndrome. Lose the diapers, not your patients, which was a great tagline and would have been a great title for this presentation, but it was already taken. They recommend sitting for 5 minutes. That's an eternity when you're a child. It's also an eternity when you're an adult. So you can always work up to it. And really every kid is different. Some kids really might genuinely take like 10 minutes to be able to like, shift their attention from the activity they were just doing to the activity of going potty. And you can always work up to it. If your kid sits on the potty for 5 seconds, great. I love it. But we will just work on increasing that. And then also talking about, do they sit or do they stand if you have a boy? I have a boy. I recommend just everyone sits forever all the time. It's much less messy. It's just, how did I do that? I went back. Big fan of just everyone sitting. It also, for my kid at least, when he started standing to pee because someone showed him at preschool, one of his friends, he then stopped pooping for a while because you have to sit to poop. And he was like, no, I stand now to go to the bathroom. So that was a whole nother challenge. So I'm a big fan of just sitting, but I know for some people it is very important that their son can stand to go potty. So you can work on that. And then make sure that everybody knows what the reward is, because you don't want grandma giving them like 6,000 gummy bears when you're like, no, we just wanted them to have one gummy bear. And then for that reward piece too, make sure it's something that you can limit access to outside of potty training. So if your kid loves the tablet, you probably don't want to take that away and only use it for potty training. For your sanity, for your child's sanity, just don't do that. So make sure that it's something that, maybe there's a specific app that you can restrict access to, that when they go potty, that's what they get. For one kiddo that I'm working with, it's the Daniel Tiger potty song. Now I can't remember it. I was singing it the other day. Go, go potty, go, go potty, something like that. But he only gets access to that song when he's sitting on the potty to encourage him to actually sit for an extended amount of time. So just make sure that everybody knows what those rewards are, when and how those rewards should be given. Because, also you don't have to use food rewards. You can use like stickers or hand stamps or whatever your kid is happy about. Find a way to use that. And also, I know some people do get kind of about edibles, but you can cut up gummy bears in very small sizes. You can also buy mini gummy bears. You can cut up M&Ms. You can also buy mini M&Ms. There's a lot of ways to like make things a little bit smaller so that your kid is still getting access to that, because for some kids, that's just where we're at this age developmentally, too. Like edible rewards might be the most rewarding thing, and that's okay. I am also very motivated by food. I will walk a long way to have a cupcake or ice cream. I will wait for 45 minutes in a line to get ice cream served from people who a new place that opened that employs people with disabilities. And I will stand in line for 45 minutes for that, just to get a tiny scoop of ice cream, because that's important to me and motivating.
I also think, Megan, a huge pro about edibles too is they're quick to deliver, and then they are consumed quickly, whereas if your kiddo wants to work for a 10-minute episode of Daniel Tiger or whatever, that's going to be harder to transition to the next thing that you have on your routine.
Yep, it's easily consumable. It's done. It's there. And so like sometimes access to toys is kind of hard, because then you always have to take away the toy at the end. And then it's like, do you want to do that right now while you're also potty training? So, make it path of least resistance. Make it easy on yourself, because this is a challenging thing that you're doing. And then, definitely have a plan in there for how to handle accidents. And then consistency is important. So sharing this plan with anyone who provides care for your child is going to be really important. And then just a quick note on behavior, because I have to put it in it's like an unspoken rule when you're a behavior analyst. So just some things to this is not super within the scope of this presentation, but anyway, remember your ABCs: antecedent, behavior, consequence. The antecedent is what happens right before the behavior. Then the B is the behavior, obviously, and then the consequence is whatever happens right after the behavior. So definitely, as a consequence for peeing in the potty, you want to see more of that, so you want to reward that. So definitely, that's when you're going to provide those reinforcers, provide that social praise, provide the M&Ms, throw the party. But really, we want to avoid the use of punishment or a response cost. So a response cost would be like, oh, well, you didn't go potty, so now you don't get the iPad. That's not a good example. You didn't go potty, so now I'm taking the sticker that you already earned, I'm taking that off, or I'm taking a token off of your token board so that you have to do more work to get that reinforcer. or like punishment would, anything kind of aversive, which gets into a whole nother thing. So really try to avoid that, because that doesn't teach skills. Taking something away from a child doesn't teach them the behavior that you want to see more of. So definitely focusing on those rewards, and then always state those instructions positively, because if children have an auditory processing struggles, if you're like, don't pee on the floor. Well, the last thing they heard was pee on the floor. And so now they're going to pee on the floor. So instead, put your pee in the potty, which sounds ridiculous and weird, but like you're telling them the behavior that you expect. Because a lot of times kids engage in behaviors because they don't necessarily always know exactly what to expect, or they know this is going to get a big reaction from mom. And I love big reactions. And it doesn't matter if mom's upset or mom's happy about it. I just know I'm going to get a big reaction. So, make sure that you're stating those things positively so your kid knows exactly what to do. And then most importantly, we always strive for happy, relaxed, engaged. That's what we want our learners to be, because I don't know about you, but the last time I was really mad, I didn't really get anything done. I didn't learn anything. So why would I expect a child to learn anything if they are upset in any way? So, we're not always going to be happy, relaxed, and engaged, but it's something to strive for. And if you're not able to be happy, relaxed, and engaged, either you or your child, maybe take a step back and just re-examine kind of your plan and what you're doing. So there are like a couple of approaches for potty training. So one is kind of a time-based thing where it's like, okay, we're going to go every 45 minutes, every hour, whatever. And that works really well for some people. And then there's also routine-based training of like, we go first thing in the morning when we wake up. Then we go before we get on the bus for school. We go right when we get home. It's useful when you're starting out or when you have a child who doesn't initiate going potty. So if they're just not initiating, they're not saying, Mom, I gotta go, or they're not just going to the bathroom by themselves, it's really helpful to do this routine-based training. And it's also because a lot of kids don't recognize those signals that their body is giving them. It's like, you gotta go, your bladder's stretching out, go, because that low tone affects every muscle in your body. And so that can interfere with how strong those signals are, and then lead to accidents then, because they don't realize until it's like, oh my gosh, I gotta go, and then they don't get to the potty in time. So that routine-based training can be helpful there. Whenever you are doing it though, you don't ask your child, hey, do you need to go potty? Because if they're playing and they're having fun, they're like, no, I don't need to go potty, I need to do this. So it's more of, it's time to go potty. And that's when those visuals can be helpful too, of like first potty, then blocks. And do it during those natural transitions. So like, hey, you just had dinner, go potty. Or hey, we're about to have dinner, go potty. Hey, we're about to go play outside, go potty. And so doing that. And then when you are then teaching that initiation piece, just have them repeat the instruction. So like if your words are, let's go potty, it would be, you would get them to repeat, let's go potty. So that then eventually they can kind of pair that together. So then they are saying, let's go potty to you, to let you know that like, hey, we got to go potty now. But you can do, like I said, the time-based training as well. And they do have potty watches, which are great, but they only go for so long. I think what's the max time? Do you remember?
Well, so we had a learner where typical potty watches for children only go to about 60 minutes, but this watch that's actually in this picture, you can customize on intervals to be longer than 60 minutes. I believe this learner is on a schedule of 150 minutes. So
250 minutes.
250 minutes. Sorry.
Maybe it's 150. I don't know. You're his. Why am I telling you you're wrong? You've been the one analyzing the data.
So if your kiddo needs a longer interval than what the typical potty watches are, shoot an email and I can give you some resources on watches that do the same thing, but they're not necessarily advertised as a potty watch.
And especially because the ones that are advertised as potty watches are like cutesy and have a toilet on them. But if your kid's like 7, you're like, that's not really appropriate for everyone to know that he's potty training. Maybe it was fine on a 3-year-old, but not necessarily fine for a first grader. And And we know a lot of kids won't tolerate wearing watches because I had to get used to wearing a watch. Like I don't like, and now I do, but it took a while. And having an Apple Watch is like really motivating for me. So I'll wear that. But like for kids, it's like, you want me to wear this watch that buzzes and then I have to go potty. Like that's not motivating. So they might not want to wear it. But yeah, so for this kid, we put one on a like necklace so that he could wear it. For another kid, nurses have like little pin on like watches that are actually then like upside down so that because a lot of times nurses can't wear watches and so they can look down and see the time, which is really cool. So that's an option. And then also we had some other watches as well. But yeah, just reach out to us if you need some options for that, because finding one, especially for an older child, can be challenging. And then this is the first thing we used with that kid that like this buzzes and then you go to the potty. And so that helped him, and that helped stay consistent across all the environments he was into. I'm just seamlessly transitioning. Just want to say, Marie knows that when I'm around technology, like everything like malfunctions and breaks. So the fact that this is hopefully going well is great. But we know that you are going to run into some challenges because potty training is hard. So accidents do happen. They're going to happen. That's life. It probably will happen more often with than their typical peers or your other children, that just because there's a lot of competing things like the low tone, the communication challenges, maybe some physical differences. But during accidents, it's important to stay neutral. So neutral face, calm body, calm voice, be consistent about it so that every time that there's an accident, this is how you're responding, so your child knows that that's how you're going to respond. And big thing, what are your coping strategies? Who's in your support network? Make sure you know that. Make sure you're ready to reach out, tell people that you're potty training so that, those good friends or your mom, your sister, your brother, whatever, so they can reach out and be like, hey, how's it going? Do you need any help? Do you need some support? So making sure that you have that network really strong, because accidents it's hard. It's really hard to be cleaning up pee off the carpet for the third time in the day, or when your child pees on your new couch. And so remember, step back and adjust the plan as needed. If your kid is peeing on the couch, maybe they sit in a special seat where you have put like towels down. We do that with my kid, because sometimes you get really into whatever you're doing and you don't even realize that you've peed. So just adjust your plan as you need to. Or if it's like, wow, our kid always has an accident at 3:00 in the afternoon. What are we doing at 3:00 in the afternoon? Oh, it's like when he's getting home from on the bus and his siblings are getting home, and it's just, everything's kind of chaotic, and we've got to get this kid to that after school activity and this kid over here. And oh my gosh, we forgot to take him to go potty. So, then you can kind of look at that and put some supports in place so that, we can try to avoid that. And also regression happens. Especially during a worldwide pandemic, regression happens. So many kids lost ground during this time because of all the other changes going on. Like, I know we as adults have had a hard time coping, or I guess I can't speak for you people. I've had a hard time coping with a worldwide pandemic. And so kids are going to also. And so potty training a lot of times is the first thing to go, because it's hard. And it's it's a skill if they just got potty trained, it's not a skill that they just have down, And so it's going to happen. So it's going to happen as a response to change, to stress, to illness. If your kid has surgery or your kid gets really sick, there's going to be some regression. Just be prepared for that. And so you might have to step back and go back to your toileting plan and be like, okay, we got to go back to step 3 instead of step 6 that we thought we were on. And that's okay. Usually they'll pick up and make those gains even faster than before. And so just remember, you can adjust the plan, you can change the plan, and you're probably going to need to, and that's okay. And then the all favorite, bedwetting. Bedwetting's hard, man, because everyone likes to sleep. But really, for typically developing kids, nighttime bladder control does not kick in until they're like 6 or 7 years old. So, I mean, that's like a first or second grader. And so then if you think about a child with Down syndrome, that's probably going to be even later, like maybe like 8, 9, 10, and that's okay. It's more common in children with Down syndrome for bedwetting. It's more common if you have a family history, if you have a small bladder, if you have a kid that's like a super heavy sleeper, if you're having constipation issues, and then some kids have lower vasopressin production, and that can increase urine production at night. So there could be a physical component in that way, or sleep apnea can. A lot of times you'll see bedwetting and then a kid gets diagnosed with sleep apnea. So make sure that you are talking to your doctor about that, because sleep apnea is very common in people with Down syndrome due to the differences in the facial structure. Diabetes can cause increased urine production, so stay on top of that. Sickle cell, if they have a UTI, they could have an increase in bedwetting. Epilepsy can sometimes cause bedwetting because urinating can be fairly common for some seizures. And then like psychosocial stressors. Did they change schools? Did their friend move away? Are you going through a divorce? Did a grandparent pass away? Did somebody move away? Are you moving? All of those things, so many things, can cause bedwetting. And so just making sure that you're talking to your doctor, because some of these things do have a medical component that can be treated. You can try to do it behaviorally. There are like bedwetting alarms that you can put in, or you can set your own alarm and wake your kid up every couple hours at night, which sounds horrible. Or you can put them in a nighttime pull up and be like, you're probably going to grow out of this. So really just stay in touch with your pediatrician if you have concerns, or if this is lasting, into that middle school age. That would kind of be a time when you would want to reach out, especially to your doctor. Just make sure there weren't any things that you could address. And so, yeah, decrease fluids in the evening, but also definitely encourage sufficient fluids during the day, because we want to make sure that kids are hydrated, but we also don't want to give them like drinks past like a certain time. And then there are some things that can actually irritate the bladder. Basically, like all of the things that children like, or that really people like caffeine, carbonated drinks, citrus fruits, artificial red or purple dyes. I guess all of those things can irritate the bladder, and so could result in some bedwetting. And then just avoid reward systems for staying dry overnight or keeping a dry bed, because a lot of these things are going to be out of your child's control. And so we don't want to be like, you failed because your body literally can't hold urine overnight, so you don't get a sticker. So just avoid that. It's something that, a lot of times does have a medical component, or just a developmental component that, their body just isn't ready to stay dry overnight, and that's okay. So just avoiding those reward systems for that. But you can also get pads to put over the mattress, so that, waterproof ones, so it doesn't go through. You can put them in training underwear at night. So there's a lot of things that you can do. And you can also, especially if you have an older child, but this is still a challenge, you can teach them how to clean up after themselves. So, if you wake up and you're wet, this is what you need to do. Not necessarily as like a punishment, but just like, this is part of life. If you have an accident, you take your sheets off, you put them in the washer, you get the washer started. So bedwetting is really challenging, and it's a really hard thing, because it is probably a mix of behavioral and medical issues. And then wiping. Wiping is hard, because a lot of times you see those shortened limbs, decreased fine motor skills, and then like something that you rarely think of is the whole abstract concept of clean versus dirty. Like I've never like sat down until recently and been like, how do I tell, like, this is clean, but this is dirty? Like you can't really tell, but sometimes it's just a really subtle change between clean and dirty. Not necessarily for wiping, but even still, like a little poop on the toilet paper, you're really not clean yet, and that can be hard to teach that very abstract concept. Wet wipes can be helpful because they help get everything off, and less wiping, and then practice. So Marie, I don't know if you want to talk about how not how we practice, but how we've had kids practice, and it's kind of gotten at that practice piece, but also that clean versus dirty concept. And it's really
one way we have addressed wiping is by utilizing a balloon. And then we will put some texture, so something like peanut butter, or you can even use like Nutella or almond butter if your kiddo's allergic to peanuts. And
chocolate pudding.
And we'll place that, I don't call it food item. We'll place the peanut butter or whatever on the balloon, and then you often pair it with the visual that Megan showed earlier, where you have like the big spot and then it slowly fades to a smaller spot. So then you're able to practice and like, oh, there's still peanut butter on the balloon, to show that you got to keep wiping until the balloon is all clean. We've also put balloons, you might have seen this honestly idea on Facebook before, but where you put the balloon behind a chair. So then you're also working on that motor coordination of how you have to rotate your trunk around, to wipe behind you. But then there's also some adaptive ways where you can stand up and other options, too, aside from just the typical rotating and wiping that way. But yeah, so like Megan pulled it up right here. So we'll often look at toilet paper. So we'll have the balloon we're looking at the toilet paper, and then, I said that wrong. We'll have them use the toilet paper, wipe the peanut butter off, and be like, oh, the toilet paper. We have to wipe until toilet paper is clean, and then they'll keep wiping the balloon off until eventually when they pull up the toilet paper, it's all clean, and that means they're all done.
But anybody who walks in on this and like they don't know that that's what we're doing, especially for like in the office, like planning out how to do this, they're like, just like, what is happening? What's going on? Because we've spent a lot of time being like, okay, if a child can't fully reach, how do we teach them to do, like, how do you, and so it's never a dull moment with us.
Another thing that families do is use a bidet.
Yes.
With a bidet is that not every toilet will have a bidet, and then they do make portable ones, but then there's also a cleanliness piece to that. I'm ensuring your bidet is always clean now, but that is another alternative route to pursue versus using toilet paper.
Yeah, or if you still have like the little thing that they send you home with from the hospital after you give birth, you can always fill up that little squeeze bottle and use that too. So yeah, some kids though do have, for those kids that have like that bowel movement like every night at a predictable time, I've had some parents who are just like, and then we just take a shower and that's just how it is. And so, wiping is hard for basically all children. It's a challenge, especially for a kid that's like, I'm over it. I pooped already and I'm ready to go. Goodbye. But we do know that it is really important because, you don't want your kid to smell like poop all day. And if you smell like poop and then you are employed, like that's going to be a challenge. And so we wouldn't want it to affect any of their social opportunities or employment opportunities down the road. But yeah, it is really hard. And so there are some adaptive things, like Marie said, that you can do. But yeah, sometimes you do have to reach out for some assistance there because it can get sometimes it can get complicated.
Would you agree, Megan, that aside from getting that first hurdle, just getting on a routine and having that successful, you're voiding on the toilet, some of the 3 hardest skills are initiating, wiping, and then that bed, staying dry overnight, those 3 skills.
Yep, I would say those are the things that most of the families that we work with have had struggles with. And so there are ways to work on all of those things. We have to find what works. Because like we said before, there is no one way to potty train. There isn't. It's going to be the way that works for your family. And even if you have multiple children, they might all potty train differently. I've heard some people who are just like, we barely survived potty training our first child. And then our second child just decided that they peed in the potty one day. And it's just like crazy how that works. But yeah, because some kids are really motivated to do it. Some kids could care less. And we just have to find what works for each family and for each child. And I want to be playing balls with that little guy because that looks really fun. So yeah, these are some resources that we have used. So Potty Time for Kids with Down Syndrome, it actually was just published in 2020. Really excited to have it. I got to see Terry Katz, who wrote it, speak at the National Down Syndrome Congress Conference. And it has really great information. And it's always nice to have something that's specifically written for families that have a child with Down syndrome, because there are some things that you might need to be aware of that not everybody would be aware of. And so this is a really, really, really great resource. Also, the National Down Syndrome Society has some resources. The Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh, CHOP, they have a whole podcast about it, and they're a great resource for, they have a great Down syndrome clinic out there too. Toilet training in less than a day. I always laugh because I'm like, that's not real. That's not how that works. But it is written by Azrin and Fox, who kind of did the first study back in the 70s, man, that maybe even 60s. They were like the first ones to show. They did it with adults who were institutionalized, who people were like, oh no, they can't be potty trained, and they were able to do that. And they did refine their methods over time because things that are what's acceptable changes. And so that book was written, gosh, like in 98, I want to say, but it's still, those things still apply, and they do have some good stuff in there. And then, oh crap, potty training is a good one as well. And then I just threw this one in there, emotional ABCs, because potty training is challenging, and everyone experiences a lot of emotions. And so you might need to work on some of that self-regulation as well. And so emotional ABCs is a website that has a lot of activities for kids to understand emotions and how to respond to emotions. So it's also just never too early to start working on that as well. So yeah, these are all the resources that we've utilized, and probably even more than that, because I think I had a stack like this thick of resources, of articles that I put on Marie's desk the other day. But even still, that stack that thick, potty training is something that's skipped over in a lot of the resources and in a lot of the research. So it is hard to find, which is surprising considering it is a very common challenge for a lot of people. So I'm going to stop sharing. Does anyone have any questions or any challenges?
Do we use only the adult toilet with steps, stools, rails instead of a separate kid potty?
Oh yeah, no, that is a great question. So I have feelings about that, but these are just my feelings. And so if you want to use a separate little potty, go ahead, do it. Wonderful. If that's what works for your family, I love it. Especially if your kid feels more secure, more stable on that, that's totally fine. They do have a lot of things now though that like will fold out and have a step stool and the toilet seat thing. And so you can use that too. The only thing, the main thing of why I don't like those little potties is because sometimes people are like, well, we put them in front of the TV in the living room. Well, do you want them to pee on the floor in the living room? Like you need to be in the bathroom. So if you do use it, I definitely suggest that it's in the bathroom so that you don't have to train to then go to the bathroom to use the potty, and because that adds just a whole nother layer. Or some kids who have a lot of difficulties with generalizing skills. It's like, well, this is where I pee and I poop. I don't want to use that big potty ever. And so sometimes it does become a thing that now you have to teach that transition. So I do recommend that at least try the big potty first. And if it's just a no-go, that's okay. But sometimes it does have a component where it's like, okay, now my kid can pee and poop in this potty, but only this potty. And I want them to be able to flush in this pot because so yeah.
So it can add another step once you are successful on the separate kid potty, then generalize all those skills out the typical potty that they'll see more often.
Yeah. So it's definitely a personal choice. That's up to you guys.
Those pros and cons.
Yep. There's, like I said, no right answer or no one answer. Right?
Yeah, one answer. That's a good.
Great. And if you don't want to ask your questions now, you can always shoot us an email. I can put that in the chat. That's our email, right? Like I said, everything just changed, so I'm still getting used to that. So you can always reach out to us and we can set up a time to talk if you're like, oh, I have questions, but it's a lot of questions, or if you don't want to speak out in here, that's totally fine.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so my son is 9. He's very verbal, communicates, but he just doesn't care. He will go potty if I tell him to go potty. Last night we were at a restaurant and he said, I have to go potty. So we went potty. He's done it twice out when we were in public, but never at home. We do have some issues with constipation. So he's not regular, but he knows when he goes because he pushes on his belly. So I know he's ready. He's very smart. He knows he's supposed to go in the potty. He's so fighting it. He will sit in a dirty diaper all day if I didn't change him. We've tried the rewards. I don't know. I guess it's just if you have any other ideas. And I know it's just a matter of having to sit there and do it all day, every day. But anything?
So he doesn't initiate, or it's rare that
He's done it 2 times.
Okay.
But Jennifer, when you tell him to go, he will go. So so it really is that initiation piece.
He will go potty if I say it's time to go potty. He will go potty. He's never pooped. We have a big issue with pooping, so that's a whole nother story. It's just getting him to go to the bathroom. But he will definitely go, and he will hold it. In his there's times where he will hold it. You know, on road trips, he will be dry. So I know he can hold it and go at a certain time.
Do you use any kind of like visual schedule at your house or at school?
No, we're home. We've done virtual. So we put a reward system on the wall, but not, what to do.
Because it sounds like, Marie, jump in at any time. Maybe like doing kind of like some routine based or even a timer, but like switching kind of that instructional control away from you, because obviously you're not going to be following him around for the rest of his life, switching that away from you to something else that he's maybe in control of, that like maybe there's a timer that he sets on, an iPad or some other visual timer, or even getting just a visual schedule and doing that kind of routine based potty training of like, okay, these are the days, or these are the times you wake up, you go potty, you eat breakfast, you take a shower, you get dressed, you go potty. And maybe trying that, because it does sound like he has a lot of those skills, but switching it away from you kind of being in control of telling him to him being more in control, so that he is that initiation piece, he's doing that. And if that's, time-based, if it's routine-based, if it's just when you feel the need to go and that's when he goes, all 3 of those ways of initiating, they all work. They're all fine. So maybe trying out some kind of visual schedule for him, or.
And you may already be doing this, Jennifer, but I think another piece too, when Megan earlier was talking about the ABs of behavior, for your kiddo, sounds like the behavior is that initiation piece. So the thing you want to be reinforcing for sure is when he does initiate, you're not necessarily anymore reinforcing the behavior of voiding in the toilet. So you want to make sure that you're delivering the reinforcement as he initiates, paired with whatever environmental support you decide is best for your family, whether that is the visual support, whether that's a visual timer, or a potty watch.
Okay.
So then there'd be some teaching, so let's say you go with an iPad timer, right? That every hour and a half, he needs to go to the bathroom, so you might provide a verbal and a gestural prompt at first to the timer. And then when you'd be like, oh, you responded to the timer, you're going to the potty, and reinforce right there, because he can do the rest once he's in the bathroom. So just really focus on that initiation piece. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
And then of course too, if he voids in the toilet, you can also make a big deal about that. So you don't have to choose one. You can throw a party both times. But yeah, so doing that, and a visual could help with that if your child is a visual learner. And if you need any help with that, definitely reach out and we can talk about something.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have about 4 minutes left if anybody else wants to ask a question. If not, again, Megan, thank you so much. And Marie, and Megan's shared her email address, which I guess has recently changed. Is that right, Megan? Are you still getting emails from the old email address?
Yeah.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
I believe I copied Megan on the email I sent out yesterday on the reminder. Did you see that, Megan? Okay, just in case you need a way to get a hold of Megan, or you can just reach out to me and I'll hook you up.
Yep. Because potty training is so challenging, but for a lot of people, it does feel like kind of like once your kid is potty trained, it's kind of there's a barrier that you've been able to cross because so many places it's like, oh well, your kid has to be independent in the bathroom, and so getting them to have that skill is so important, and they can be proud of that, and you can be proud of that, which is great. So yeah, and definitely check out the resources that we shared at the end of the PowerPoint. And Lindsay, I'll send you this PowerPoint. I'll figure that out how to do that. But yeah, if you have any questions that come up, definitely shoot us an email. Or if you need help creating some visual supports or a data sheet, definitely reach out to us as well. But yeah, this book I felt like was really super helpful. And prior to this, most of the books that I had on potty training were all geared towards children with autism, which we know there's some similarities, but there's a lot of differences too. And so having something that is specifically written for families that have a child with Down syndrome is really helpful. And they have a lot of really great resources in here as well. So, but yeah, definitely reach out to us. We are here to support, even though we're not in the same place. And we are always happy to come back and do any kind of other presentations too.
All right. Well, thank you. Anybody else have another question? We have just a few minutes. Okay, I see.
A copy of the data sheet? Yes. Can you shoot me an email and I can send you that data sheet? And it just says Hatcher family. So Hatcher family.
Crystal Hatcher. Yep.
Okay. Crystal, just shoot me an email and I can get you that data sheet.
Thank you.
Great.
Definitely.
Well,
Okay.
it always helps me to hear other people. So like Crystal or Sandra, if you guys like have, or Ashley, if you always have experience, like it helps me to hear other things. So Bradley will go to the bathroom anytime he knows he can have a reward immediately after. Like he can just poop out just a little bit so he can watch a movie. And so we took away, like we let him watch 10 minutes of something. We would do 10 minutes of screen time and I will put your legs in 1 second. We would do 10 minutes of screen time if he went potty, but then he was able to just go all day. Like he would watch 10 minutes. So then I took away. So then we took away screen time and then he didn't go. And so like, I feel like he's smart enough to, but then his little brother is going potty. So he's more motivated. If he even goes to the bathroom, then he'll go right after. But I just don't know if he has the urge to go and if we're only going because of what's happening after.
Yeah.
Making himself go.
Yeah. Marie, do you want to speak to that?
The interoception piece.
Interoception piece? Yeah.
So I'm sure you guys all know of the 5 common senses, that are common knowledge. You have sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. But then in the OT world, there's actually 3 other sensory systems. There's the vestibular sensory system, the proprioception, and then a fancy word called interoception. And basically, interoception is your ability to sense those internal sensations, so hunger, thirst, having to go to the bathroom, pain. And so interoception is a newer concept. There is a really great book. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we can include that resource, Megan, into the email before you send that slide deck.
Yeah.
But there are interoception interventions. A lot of them are very cognitively based, but one thing that we have found as the most successful to help interoception awareness with folks with Down syndrome is that routine and what do you call it, Megan? The natural based routine,
Just now I can't remember even what I said. Routine based.
That routine based is like pairing things in your routine with the fact that you need to go versus relying on that internal sensation. Does that make sense?
Emma, calm down. Let me mute.
Yeah, because some kids with that low tone just really, it's that feeling of needing to go is just not salient enough. And so they might miss it. And especially if you're also dealing with any kind of constipation issues, you know, then internally stuff's getting all kind of smushed together. So maybe it kind of always feels like you need to go. And so then your brain starts ignoring that. And so, yeah, it sounds like maybe some routine-based training or even like timer training might be helpful. And then, so it sounds like that reinforcer though, that you had the screen time was like very powerful, very reinforcing. And he was like, okay, I know that if I just pee a little bit, I'm going to get that. Like, how smart is that? That's smart. He's like, I'm going to work that system. And he's real cute too, because I just saw him in some superhero costume. And I was like, yes, I would give him all of the things too. And he's like, I know how to work this. Great. So yeah, sounds like that was really, really powerful for him, which is awesome. But so for him, I could see that the challenge would be like fading out those reinforcers. But he also seems like, just from watching him for like 2 seconds, seeing him come and like be wanting to interact with you, like that social reinforcement is probably really important for him. And then also that pride piece of like, I am peeing in the potty too, just like my brother. Really highlight those too, because you can always give that social attention. You can always like make him feel proud. But yeah,
you could also thin out that reinforcement. So instead of every time we go potty, we get the reinforcer, you could use something like a sticker chart or a totem board. So then he's only getting that reinforcement after maybe going 2 times at first, and then 3 times, and then 4 times, and then 5 times, until eventually, you know, he's going throughout the whole day. And at the end of the day, he gets that reinforcer to eventually, you know, I'm so used to going potty that it's no big of a deal. And you can completely remove the reinforcement there.
But yeah, that can be hard though, because kids do figure out how to work the system a lot. I'm just like, oh, I thought I was smarter than you, but I'm not. And so yeah, even if you do it like on a variable schedule, so you can do like maybe sometimes it's every 2 times, every 5 times, every 3 times. That's why people get addicted to gambling, because it is a very powerful thing, because you never know when the next win is going to come. And so that could make it more motivating to go too. So like, okay, sometimes I get the iPad every couple of times that I go potty, but then sometimes I get it every 5 times. So I better make sure I'm going potty. Yeah. And then you can also really focus on too, kind of helping him realize that he needs to empty his bladder completely. Because it sounds like he was probably like just peeing a little bit and then holding it, and that can sometimes cause some challenges as well. So you could even have him like push on his belly so that he fully empties his bladder. Or with one kiddo that I'm working on right now, we have him kind of like lean over a towel, like a rolled up towel, to kind of apply some of that pressure to help him completely void. So doing that too could be helpful, or even sitting on the potty for a longer time period, which as active as he's been, I'm sure it's probably a challenge. I'm like, he needs to come play with my kid. They could just both play really hard and sleep really well. So if there's anything that would motivate him to sit longer so that he has more of an opportunity to void. So it could even be that you get the iPad while you're sitting on the potty too. So like you could look at that. And then even helping him kind of relax on the potty. So, okay, we're going to do some deep breathing on the potty so that it fully allows his bladder to relax and he voids more. So does that help? Does that give you a direction to go? Awesome. You are muted, so I can't hear you, but that's fine.
Yeah, no, it's tricky. Well, the other thing is I thought that like kind of training both my boys at the same time would be great, and it's not.
Yeah, sounds really terrible.
Mostly the rewards is what gets them, because once one gets a reward, the other wants one. So I feel like the variable would be better, but it's very emotional when. Anyway.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe some self-regulation stuff there, which is a challenge for all children in that like preschool age, because they feel these really big emotions and don't necessarily know how to handle them, which then we all have really big emotions about that and don't always know how to handle So emotional ABC is on there. That's a great tool for everybody. And even like we've been doing a class for emotional regulation, and Marie after one was like, I used some coping strategies during that class because it was very stressful. I was like, yay, we're all learning about
breaths to stay calm.
Never have too much of that. So yeah, no, that sounds very overwhelming. But you know, hey, at least it sounds like they might be motivated by each other. So hey, you can work the system and exploit that. Use what you got, man. Use what you got.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Super appreciate it. I'll get out the what now, Danielle?
Oh, sorry. Ashley hopped on, so she might have a question.
Oh, Ashley, do you have a question? Oh, no. Okay. So, awesome. All right. Well, you guys enjoy your weekend and have fun potty training.
Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
Happy Mother's Day to everyone.
And Lindsay, I'll get you this PowerPoint on Monday so that Marie, I think, wanted to add some resources to it.
Fantastic.
So we'll get that.
And I did record this session. Is it okay for us to publish on our website? Perfect. Yay. So I think we had a couple of people registered that weren't able to attend or didn't attend. So that'll be good for them and they'll get the resource as well. So
great. So if you are watching in the future, you can still reach out to us. Email address will be in the PowerPoint too. Future people.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's nice to speak with all you guys. Bye.
Bye.